What's up, guys? This is Will and Chris from Beluga coming back to you with another weekly Beluga podcast where we waste our lives on crypto Twitter so that you guys don't have to. We've had a pretty crazy last week in the markets. I mean, I guess we could probably say that every week. But I guess the top headline is that Solana finally got its six-figure airdrop, which for me included, but for a lot of people was kind of that benchmark of the ecosystem really starting to ramp up. Yeah, I mean, I personally have just been pissed at myself that I didn't get into Solana for the last 2 months now. And JTO was kind of the latest salt on that wound. Chris, I know you were kind of involved over there. How'd that go for you?
Went well. I mean, it always feels good to wake up and feel, your bag a bit heavier. And then, yeah, proceeded to rip a bit after too. I think we've topped out a bit on JTO at this point. I think here, let's see if we can pull this up. But
yeah, so I mean, JTO went to what, almost 5 billion or something FTV,
something
which
like
is
that.
If I'm remembering correctly, 2x of
more than Lido, right? With a fraction of the volume.
Yeah, what do we think about that?
I mean, this is classic. I think it's just, look, Solana's the chain right now with all the hype and the attention. So people are loving it and hyped about this. But look, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's just no way it's going to hold that. And I think the euphoria is already dying down on it, right? Like the token hit, almost like you said, 4 billion, right? And it's been slowly just retracing since. And so I think it's over in the sense that we're not going to hold that. It's unsustainable. But look, it was a great moment. I think the Sol community was hyped about it. It's the first big airdrop, right? I think I'm hyped for them. Look, I made some money on it, which always feels great. And I know a lot of people did too. So I think it was a good moment for Solana. They did it in a way that was very accommodating to everybody, right? I mean, you could have made $5,000 in JTO airdrop just from having a single $1, right, on any of these wallets. And so I think it was a good thing for Solana, and it's just a big moment for them to come out like this. So
I did think the distribution was interesting because a lot of times on ETH and ETH layer 2 airdrops, it's almost exclusively volume. There may be 10 other metrics, but pretty much if you move around a lot of money, you get a big airdrop. That was not the case for this, which to me kind of embraces the Solana vibes of community and welcoming to even smaller players.
Totally.
I mean, having a whole eco built off of low gas fees, quick transactions, does kind of show in these ecosystem plays. But yeah, totally. No, I'm happy to see. It's been so long since we had so many of the top protocols on Sol still don't have tokens, and I hope for the sake of the Sol eco that this JTO drop has spurred on a couple more.
Totally. I think at the end of the day, it just shows, it allows the Solana folks to realize airdrops at the end of the day are a great way for protocols to get distribution, to get marketing, to get users. And some of them are mercenary, and that's the knock on it, right? It's a lot of mercenary folks that are coming here. But look, I think it's a way of customer acquisition, and clearly it's worked out well for JTO. So again, I think for the chain that does $6 DCAs on a regular basis, it was a good move to see people get $5,000 airdrops. So I was hyped for them.
Absolutely.
And yeah, maybe related to JTO. I mean, the big, not only for Solana, but big week for Solana and BONK. We saw BONK just absolutely rip last couple days. And we've been calling here that BONK will be $1 billion token for a while now, and we didn't quite get there. But I think, like you said, Will, we got to a little bit over, about 900. Hit 900 on the market cap. So just curious what you think, and what's your reaction to this as someone who's not as deep in the Solana community?
Yeah, I mean, to your earlier point about airdrops being user acquisition, the fact that I'm talking about Solana meme coins, Solana DeFi, etc., that speaks to how much it's worked already. I think when it comes to BONK, I've honestly never been a great meme coin buyer. That's not really in my repertoire. I kind of just click the buy button and forget about it. I will say it's been a while since I've seen, on any chain, not just Solana, but it's been a while since I've seen a whole community rally around one single token. I mean, we're all plagued by being married to our bags in this space. And usually there's a lot of fighting in between tokens. BONK is one of the ones where everyone's just like, fuck it. Like, it's going up. We're buying. Which has been cool to see. I mean, I think the last one I remember was Pepe, basically, which BONK is now flipped.
Yeah, totally.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, it's been crazy to watch. And, there's been a lot of nonsense with it, like rumors of the Coinbase listing and blah, blah, blah. And maybe those end up being true. And it feels like a lot of just, turbo autist type mentality around this type of stuff. But it's just like, we're just buying BONK and that's going to make us a
weaponized autism, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, are we going to retrace? Are we going to hold? I don't fucking know. I think BONK, it's already done a lot. And I could see this being more, though, honestly. People forget, Joe McCann wrote that paper or in his update talking about Doge at the peak, right? Doge at the peak was $47 billion coin. I think SHIB was what, 20-ish? I can't really remember. And so you could see this continue to run, but also like it does feel like we may be hitting a point of resistance, at least in a little bit of sideways action, especially we get closer to the end of the year. People are going to dump for tax reasons and just like end of the year close out and just mark the books and stuff. That we may end up getting a little bit sideways for a bit before we resume the the up only in October, or sorry, in January. But yeah, I don't know. Will, what's your take on what's going to happen? Because we've seen at least maybe transitioning away from Solana shitters, talking a bit about the majors. We've seen yesterday we had our first big dump in a while, and actually, if you zoom out, not a crazy dump either. So I don't want to overplay it, but a little bit of a dump.
I think the interesting thing to your point is it wasn't a crazy dump, like price movement wise. But if you look at the open interest that was wiped out, it was like 1.5 billion or something along those lines in a 40-minute movement. Here we go. Which is just funny to me because I mean I'm remembering last cycle, every time we had a pump like this, everybody overlevers the crap out of their bag and you end up with a correction exactly like this, just a big liquidation cascade. I do like where it stopped around. We're holding this 40K mark, which as we mentioned in our last podcast, I think if we can kind of hold this new range above the 40K line, we might get that alt rally that we've all been hoping for. So I'm kind of expecting to see at least Bitcoin stall out around here for the next couple weeks or months. The interesting one will be ETH because,
right.
I mean, if you could pull up a ratio, ETH BTC, it's been down only for the last few months. If you've participated in crypto Twitter at all, everybody's been shitting on ETH for lagging behind. So the question is, does ETH rally along with the rest of the alts, as again we've seen in previous cycles, or does it stick in the same range with Bitcoin? As an ETH guy, I hope it's the former, but I think we have yet to see. I think I don't remember the exact dates, but people are expecting spot Bitcoin ETF approval in January. My thesis has been that the attention then shifts to ETH after that because it's the likely next option for a spot ETF and that kind of whole narrative. So we'll see if that happens, in which case, maybe it stalls out here until January and we start to see some movement. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see.
I agree with you. I think
right now.
I agree with you too. I mean, ETH has been underperforming relative to everything else and just been like relentlessly getting shitted on CT and everywhere else. And for good reason, just because it just hasn't performed as well as the others. Bitcoin's got a strong narrative going for it. Solana has whatever Solana has, and it's been going. That's been going too. So like, not to knock them, but it's not quite the same thing. But yeah, the ETH narrative is right behind it. It just hasn't gotten the love and attention at all for it. So I agree with you. I'm loading up on ETH right now. I think that like you said, the minute spot BTC goes through, then like you said, we just shift to spot ETF. And I think you mentioned this. Spot ETH ETF. And I think you mentioned this a couple pods ago. But like again, spot BTC is cool. And don't get me wrong, I think it's going to bring people in, and people are hyped about spot BTC. But spot ETH, once people can get a sense of what these yields are like and also stake them and pass those back, I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to get people more into the ecosystem and to understand what's going on there. So I think it's positive, and especially right now, no one's talking about it. It's been weak. I mean, look at this ETH chart; it just looks like death. If this is the weekly from May, it just looks awful.
Brutal.
And BTC's been great since then. So, but like you said, I think it's undervalued and or like underpaid attention to right now, and we should be able to make some money there. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a good one.
I mean, crypto is the biggest attention-driven economy in the world right now. So I find typically if you're looking to play like expected money flows via narrative shifts, that is often a better trade than just picking what your best coin is. I think in this case, we have a pretty clear time for narrative shift here, so I'm just kind of looking for that January. We'll see what happens.
Totally. And I was talking to a friend yesterday about like, how do you think about these things? I said, look, like you don't even have to pick, you can just bet on all of them, right? Like hold some BTC, hold some ETH, hold some SOL. Like you don't have to think about it too much and like pick who's better and who's worse or whatever. The idea that SOL's up from $8 a coin now to around 70. We're up a lot here. So the risk return is just not nearly as good anymore. So the idea that you're going to like buy this at this point and see another 10 or 20x, is it possible? Maybe, is that the best risk return like you can do? I mean, it seems unlikely, right? And it's had its moment in the sun already. So am I still mega bullish SOL? Of course, no question. And I think that there's a lot of room for it to grow still. But, for ETH at least, I think that's where I'm spending. I'm allocating more there than the other ones right now. Like I'm trimming my positions elsewhere, and ETH is where I'm adding those bags right now. So I'm with you.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, with the way everything's moved, especially if you're a guy who has a kind of distributed bag across a bunch of coins, it's likely that a lot of those other coins that have been outperforming ETH now make up larger percentages of your portfolio than you had necessarily planned. I've just kind of been trimming off profits and rotating it into ETH. Yeah.
Yep. Totally.
Resized.
And maybe, I mean, talking about a couple of ETH coins then, or at least like coins on ETH, one of the ones that's been catching a lot of steam recently is, especially with the dump yesterday, you always look at, I think one thing you always look for like strong coins, when there's a big dump, what rebounds the quickest. And I think everybody was talking about one coin in particular yesterday that just had incredible retard strength, just the INJ coin. So maybe, Will, maybe just to like sum up, like what's your take on Injective? What do you think's going on there? I know we've talked about it a bunch, and I think it's just a hilarious topic in general. But
so I think one, it has a funny name. I think the name Injective just like for some reason kind of rolls off the tongue. It feels to me like one of those coins that for whatever reason is just like caught the trader's attention and people are just kind of pumping the crap out of it. You were the first one who tipped me off about this, but for anybody who hasn't checked, the TVL of Injective is like 10.5 million right now, which is crazy. I think the market cap is 10x that. There's 6 DApps according to DeFi Llama. There's like really just not only is there nothing to do, but there's nothing happening either, which makes me kind of question. I haven't looked at unlock schedules or anything, but anybody who's been trading in crypto for a while knows the way that unlock pumps work. Maybe that's something. I tend to just think it's kind of like a trading meme ticker, and wouldn't be surprised to see it keep going up because it has no reason to go up. A lot of
Are
times
these the 6 you're talking about?
These are the 6. Yeah, they're the only 6. Which is crazy. I mean,
oh god,
crazy.
That's really
for
funny.
reference, Blast, the new layer 2, which isn't even launched yet. Yeah, we can pull that up. Has like what 700 million TVL, 800.
Oh my god, 800 million TVL.
800, and it hasn't even launched yet. So kind of makes you question like what's going on over there. I'm
like
personally like totally flat on Injective. I mean, I'm pissed that I missed this big pump, but like I can't
from the
explain
lows
it.
from the lows of this year, we're looking at
like a 10x.
Let's see. 1,500%.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you have more input on this. I really can't explain why it's going up other than,
No.
to your point, retard strength, and it's a trading ticker. And people are just going to trade the crap out of it on high leverage, and you'll get big moves like this.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I think the funny thing is, like, we were talking about it yesterday, and also I had a few other friends and saw it on CT too. Like, the number one question when seeing, like, a lot of people ask when they see the ticker going, I was like, someone at some point inevitably says, "What the hell does it do?" And nobody could answer the question what Injective does or what it is.
I couldn't tell you. I know it's like a DeFi blockchain. I honestly couldn't tell you what it does.
Exactly. I couldn't either, blockchain for finance. That's what it says, so I couldn't either. And I've been holding these coins forever, so I don't either. But look, I think at the end of the day, there's just some tokens that are just like this, where they just have,
it's just how it is.
a $2 billion market cap with nothing in there.
Yeah. Crazy.
But God bless them, good for them. Whatever they've done, hopefully I can learn something from it and take that with me. But good for them. But yeah, like, I think it's keeping. I mean, we're at all-time highs now, right? This is all-time highs.
Yeah. I mean,
so
yeah, I think so.
Geez. So now we're just in, everyone's favorite place, price discovery.
Priapism mode.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see where this fucking thing goes. So that's really funny.
I guess last thing we should kind of cover is the idea of RWAs, since that's just been such a big narrative recently, with a lot of RWA tokens pumping in another case of stuff that nobody has any fucking clue what it does. There have been a ton of RWA coins going up just because they say RWA on their website. So maybe we could talk about RWA narratives. I know you've been super deep into it, and talk a little bit about Avax as it relates to that, because that's another coin that's been heating up recently.
Totally. Maybe just the quick primer on it is RWA stands for real world assets, right? And it's the idea of taking things that live in the real world and tokenizing them, putting them on chain, so you can use the blockchain to trade these assets, move them around, and solve problems there. So the classic example everybody uses is real estate. You could buy, instead of your title for the house being somewhere, or having to deal with this 90-day process for moving ownership from person A to person B for a house, you could do this on the blockchain through an NFT. That's the classic example everybody likes, right? The truth is, doing real estate through RWAs is actually a pain in the ass, and it's not really worth it for most cases. But there's a lot of other things that people are excited about for doing real world assets, right? And one of the leading narratives is, especially in the last couple months, has been buying treasuries and T-bills and putting them on chain. So there's a protocol called Ondo. Maker's been doing this a lot, right, to give their DAI holders some yield as well, right? And Avalanche in particular has basically repositioned their whole chain to do this. They fired a bunch of people and refocus their story around these subnets for RWAs. And so they have this fund called Vista that basically goes out and buys a bunch of real world assets, puts them on chain, and lets people trade these things. And usually they're really going after big banks, big institutions, taking those holdings and tokenizing them. And so, it's pumped recently, Avalanche. And so it hasn't been talked about much though. So yeah, I guess I'm curious, Will, what's your take? Are you bullish, you bearish? What do you think? What's going on there? And how do you feel?
I think, I love yield as much as the next guy. Do I think that tokenized T-bills makes much sense? No, honestly.
I'm with you.
I think there are plenty of applications for RWAs that do make sense. I don't think just overcomplicating the T-bill buying process makes much sense. We have this weird thing in crypto where we try to take things that already exist from the normal world and just make them more complicated and call it, blockchain. I used to be a big Avax guy during DeFi Ponzi days. I did a lot on Avax. I haven't done much on-chain stuff there since. I will say I like Avax purely for its institutional appeal. They have a program, Green something, Evergreen, I think.
Evergreen,
right?
Yep.
That as of earlier this year, they'd signed on something like $2 trillion worth of asset managers. And I mean, I can't think of another blockchain that has been able to even have meetings with asset managers that large for the most part. So that attracts me. I like the idea of kind of Cosmos-esque almost, these like private custom made subnets. While I'm a super chain ETH maxi, I've worked at a bank and I know how they are. I don't think they're going to want to be sharing networks with other people for the most part. So the kind of modular custom built thing makes sense to me. And if you do it within a subnet, you're still somewhat connected to the Avax ecosystem. I like all of that. We'll see if that has any kind of meaningful price impact in the long run. But I mean, institutional money buying your bags has been like the biggest narrative ever in crypto. And seems like a pretty good one to me. Pretty good pick for that.
Totally. And I think like the story, like we've been saying this for a while and it hasn't really come true just because it's taken time. But I think, again, I think we're at this moment where, you know, banks are transitioning from private blockchains to at least semi-public blockchains, like you said, these subnets. So I think that's a huge step already.
Yeah.
And I think second is they've realized that there's just a lot of benefits to doing this, right? Especially with Asia heating up, right? And globalization becoming a thing, right? Like with Asia heating up, a lot of the activity does want to move to because there's a lot of benefits of this stuff, right? And forgetting composability, which is really the exciting part, but even just the idea of reducing transaction fees, making it more efficient, making it more seamless to do things interbank is already a big deal, right? And so, like you said, I like the idea of institutions coming on chain. I like the idea of like real permanent money coming in as well, right? And then getting the real value. Because once we get that, I think the second piece of story comes in, which then you can unlock, you know, the composability stuff. I think you can make a lot of unproductive assets productive, right? And also, like, you can just bring a little bit of a crypto flavor to a lot of these assets. And real world assets don't have to just be things like T-bills, right? Like you said, I'm actually pretty bearish on T-bills on chain. I think it's a reasonable, like, I think the words make sense, but like in practice, it doesn't, right? Because look, the truth is behind T-bills, like, I like T-bills again. As much as next, I guess 5% is cool, but at the end of the day, what happens is crypto yields are down bad, right? And so I can get 2 or 3% on Aave or Compound or whatever. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm too lazy to off ramp money, or I don't want to. So why doesn't somebody just bring me T-bills, right? And then I'll just buy them for 5%. But it's classic hot ball money stuff. It turns out buying T-bills in the real world is pretty fucking good. And like people in the real world are not going to buy T-bills on chain and to take on extra risk just because it's on chain, you know? So it's bringing zero net new dollars in. It's a new toy for people to play with all the casino going renovations. And now that the casino is beginning to open again, people are going to drop these things like fucking, you know, drop these things as quickly as they can and get back to doing what they do best, farming Prime, buying BONK, you know, or doing whatever degen shit's going to happen. Now, there's still use for this stuff, right? And people need to, but T-bills has never been the thing that made sense to me. You know, like what happened in the bull run last time, right? When around COVID, collectibles were a big deal. Luxury items were a big deal. Those are real world assets that need mobility, that have a real secondary market, right? And a lot of trading activity. That kind of stuff could matter a lot. And it's not just spot, building derivatives on top, doing perps, all these kinds of things are really exciting. So like, I think there's a lot of interesting that happen there, as well as TradFi really coming in and bring a lot of money in. So like, I think it's a narrative that, again, we've seen for a long time. It has been hit or miss, you know, but it feels like the moment is coming where it's really happening, and it could be a big boon for our bags. And so, like you said, I'm bullish. I think there's a long way to go in RWAs, and there's like a lot of activity that could be really good for us. And so I'm like excited for it, no matter what form it takes, even if it's the form of avalanche subnets. Thanks for stopping by and taking a listen. We'll catch you next week.